It is 8:05 on a Wednesday morning here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTKA.com. We're live here inside the Suburban Chevrolet Make the Choice studios. Sam Webb and Josh Zinke on the other side of the glass. And, man, I remember when our next guest, we had him on talking about a song he had made. It was just an impromptu thing. We said, let's get this guy on the radio. It'd be great to catch up with Marcus Ray. Few years later, the guy's media career is off and running. Big things on the horizon for our guy, Marcus Ray. M-Ray29, how you doing?
Sam, what's up, man? Flint Town Zone, man. I appreciate that, bringing up that welcome to the big house. I may have to re-release that, man. That was, I wrote that song, man, 11 years ago, and I recorded it in 05. I recorded it twice, 03, 05. Don't make me bring it back out, man. That's all I'm saying.
I bet you it would hit more now because your profile is bigger. It's bigger now, man. People, you had kind of gone off for a little while, and people hadn't heard from you, but now they see Marcus Ray everywhere. If you dropped it now, man, I think it would blow up.
Yeah, I might go platinum. I'm gonna tell you what, I might can go gold. Everybody's digital right now, but we just gotta win, man. You can't welcome nobody to the big house,
right?
If you're not smacking people around.
Well, it's funny, man, and that's a great segue. It's funny that you mentioned that because we've talked a lot about what they're doing differently, some of the changes they're making. We talked about Devin growing leadership wise, and some of the things that he said he did wrong, and he needs to do better as a leader, getting other guys to grind with him as opposed to grinding out by himself and that kind of thing, knowing how to approach guys, can't approach every guy in a joking fashion, that kind of thing. But he's not the only one saying, and this is kind of what's jumping out to me, Marcus. It's not just Brady. It's not just Devin. I got to give you one from Frank Clark. So Frank said, and kind of picking up on that theme, he said, quote, "I'm practicing what I'm preaching. A lot of guys don't practice what they preach. They're all talk, basically. I was never one of those guys who was all talk, but I was more or less no talk, but just more work, almost like being selfish. As long as you're doing what you have to do, as long as you're working hard on the field, as long as you're working hard in the weight room, you think everything should be good instead of holding the next man accountable, instead of holding your teammate who might be cheating a rep accountable. But this year, I'm doing everything in my power to bring the team together as one. That's what I need to do." At the end of last year, after the bowl game, I said that we were divided as a team throughout the year. That's the one thing you can't do in a team sport. In a team sport, you need the other 10 guys to have your back. That's what we've been doing since spring ball. Marcus, I'm curious, man, if this is something, A, you can identify with, and I think you can, and B, is this something that you saw and you think is going to be different this year?
A, I can identify with it from a player standpoint. Being younger, you really don't know. And if you don't have guys to show you, then you try to show yourself. And it's hard to walk in a straight line with a blindfold on. But as you go through the Michigan football program and you move down that chair every year and you get closer to the front in the meeting room, you become a senior, a leader. And it's one thing just to kind of do your own thing, but when you get out there and realize that you need everybody and everybody needs you, you have to start being more vocal. And it's one thing to lead by example, and it's another thing to lead verbally. But even Charles, who didn't really say much, he became a vocal guy by the time he was a junior. So it's going to happen eventually, especially when you lose games and you don't win a championship. Then guys are going to have to come and create their own future. And just being a Michigan man as you get older, you have to say something, and you do have to lead. So it just happens. So I definitely can relate to Frank with that. As far as B, the answer, was that someone? Do I see some of that being some issues? Yeah. I think Michigan's program last year, Brady does a good job of managing crisis, meaning he doesn't let it get out. So whatever the team problems are, he'll handle it in-house, and we'll all from the outside looking in start to guess, and we'll wait for a comment like, "Oh, that's what it was. See, Frank Clark said they were divided." But that happens when you have a young team and a young team that's not winning and a young team that doesn't have great leadership, okay? So I do see I do see that, but I think a lot of young football teams go through that. I don't think it was just Michigan or anything personal. It's just something that young teams go through, especially when they're trying to fight for a championship. And, when you don't have anything to hang your hat on other than a few good players or a good tradition. Everybody wants to be great now, and when it doesn't happen, then, things kind of fall apart and you just kind of put it together. But I think Michigan, at this point, at least they know their issues going into the season. Mm-hmm. They knew what they were up against 12 months ago. They went through a lot of growing pains. There really is no superstar now. You don't have the first round guaranteed top pick and all of that other stuff. You can get back to being a team, and it's not this guy over here and the rest of us over here. It's not David Ruffin and the Temptations, but you know what I'm saying? But it is the Michigan Wolverines featuring Devin Gardner.
I gotcha. All right, so do this for me, Marcus. I mean, because another thing you can identify with is a team or a unit kind of turning a corner, a unit kind of being, kind of being okay, kind of being good at times, but not consistently good. And then really the light bulb flipping on, and the same guys that were on the defense the year before and were just good sometimes being great all the time. I need you to kind of quantify for me, if you can, how much better you think this defense will be. Will they just be somewhat better? Because, look, there are a lot of guys that we heard great things about in the spring. Frank Clark being one of them, Joe Bolden, Jake Ryan. Heard a lot of great things. Jarrett Wilson. Are these guys ready to take a huge leap as a unit, or is it just going to be they're just going to be somewhat better? And it also take into account some of the changes that Greg Madison said he's making schematically. What do you think the impact will be ultimately?
I think the impact ultimately will be they will dominate the teams they're supposed to dominate. The Miami of Ohio's, the Appalachian State. We'll see about the Utah situation because Utah ain't no chump. But, as you go through a season, teams start to figure you out, and you're not going to dominate everybody. But I think they'll come out with the splash, and they're going to be better as a unit because they're older. They played together a little bit longer. I'm sure guys are communicating more on the field, getting lined up, feeling more comfortable, understanding what Greg Madison wants. But understand, too, Sam, that teams, once you display what you run defensively for about, let's say, the month of September, when the conference play starts in October, they're going to find some holes in what you do. And you just got to create new wrinkles, iron out your old ones, create some new ones. And it's hard. I'm going to tell you, it was hard for us to dominate for 12 games. Even Ryan Leaf threw, 300 yards. Curtis Enos finally ran for 100 yards. And certain things are going to start to happen. They just got to, if they can get the football back, turn the football over defensively, keep the ball out of the end zone in the fourth quarter, and play good red zone defense, it's hard to keep teams at 13 points nowadays. 17 points or so to me in the conference play, that's going to be dominating, but the defense will be good enough to give Michigan a chance to win. I don't think they'll be as good as Michigan State's defense last year. Okay, so I don't want this defense being compared to anyone. They need to just be good enough to win, and you can't give up 32 points a game like they did in the last 8.
Right. And, the question for me is, will they be good enough to carry this team through its offensive growing pains early in the season? I mean, the defense was decent for the most part last year. They had some trouble down the stretch. There was some trouble in some crunch time situations. But man, Nebraska, I mean, they kind of held them down for the most part. Nebraska didn't score a ton of points. They had Iowa. They had that game too. They just, the offense kind of put them in a position where the defense had to win those games, and the defense couldn't do that last year. Wondering if you think the defense will be able to carry them through some of those contests, particularly early in the season this year.
I think the defense will be able to carry them through some situations early on in the season. I do think so. And I don't think that Michigan's playing anybody that has that type of offensive firepower early that scares, that can really shake up the defense. Even the Notre Dame game a couple of years ago was 13-6, and they went to the national championship. So Michigan's in a position where they can buy their offense some time. The way Michigan State did a season ago. Michigan State really shouldn't have ended up being 13-1.
Right.
The way they started off,
Right.
but they didn't really play anybody that could have really, beat them when they were supposed to lose. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you, I think the offense is going to show up more than the defense in September. But
Wow.
to answer your question,
Well,
yes.
Wait. Now you got to explain that. You can't just throw that out there. What makes you think that?
I think that the offense is going to be clicking in September, and the defense is going to give up some points to some people. Like, don't be surprised if you go down to Notre Dame and it's another shootout, like it's been like the last couple of years. Don't be surprised if Utah walks into the big house and tries to ground and pound the way they did. I think it was Stanford last year. Understand, when you're the unit that's supposed to carry the team, sometimes it starts off the other way. So I was just throwing that one out there. I know we were having a defensive conversation, but it would not surprise me, and I'm almost willing to predict that offense will be clicking because App State's defense is not very good. Miami of Ohio is one of the worst programs in America, so the offense can come out like they did last year, like against Central Michigan and Notre Dame.
See, I just put it this way. I just play the numbers, Marcus. What I see is a more inexperienced offensive line, a running game that is far from established, a quarterback that has been good at times but is trying to find consistency, and a new offense, a new system that they're going into. So you have all of these things that need to go right, need to be answered positively for the offense to really be clicking. Are all of those things really going to go right from day one? It's possible. It's just a lot to predict that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I can agree with that, Sam. And so it's easier to go with the defense. It kind of probably makes more sense. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if they come out and light it up offensively and the defense kind of struggles. So where everybody's worrying about, can the defense carry the offense? Really, and the offense carry the defense? That's the real question, because they're going to be some times when that offense, just like Indiana, they're going to have to outscore some people, just like Notre Dame, just like the Ohio State game. There were some times where that shaky offensive line, that erratic quarterback play, no running game, put up big numbers. Mm-hmm. So they either did it or they didn't. And when they were somewhere in between, it didn't look very good. But that offense, I'm telling you, can put up points in a more explosive system than last year. As long as Devin Garner doesn't turn it over and they find ways to take care of the football and get it in the end zone, Michigan can score some points. They have the weapons and Nussmeier, let me tell you this before we switch topics or whatever. Nussmeier's the type of coordinator, if he doesn't have something, he'll find something. He's not going to sit up and say, oh, we're just young. Oh, the guys aren't executing. He's going to find a way to get the ball in the end zone and into the best player's hands.